So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever we all are. Yeah, so time for another period of question and answers, questions and responses. Ajahn Sucitto and I will trying to pick out what might be most helpful for all of you. So as I said yesterday, it would be much nicer to be actually in conversation in response to these. So hopefully our responses meet what you were intending. Yeah? So we thought to start with a couple of questions that we'll put together. Yeah, we're going to condense some of the questions today. So there's a first part to this, but we'll pick up and condense it from here. How do I understand the difference between wise caution and anxious reaction, especially my deep concern for the welfare of my family at this time of COVID, of species extinction and deep imbalance, and bringing that into the sense of when the planet is in chaos, what can be trusted here? It is said, when the mind is at peace, the world is at peace. But if so, and I train my mind, will the rest follow, or will I just feel better? Because if I feel deeply, how can I not be affected and still affect deep change in the world for the future well-being of loved ones? Yeah. So it seems really a question all of us grapple with, isn't it? How do we meet the world? Where does our cultivation sit in that? So Ajahn, do you want to some opening comments to that, and then we'll pick it up?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of grief, really. I think grief's quite a valid condensation of experience in this world. And, one can sort of try to get away from it or cheer up or find solutions or something. But I think grief is a realistic response. It doesn't mean you have to get shattered by it. If you can't be where you can actually accept grief. I mean, accept grief is a pretty trite statement, isn't it? It takes quite a bit of doing, but I know that, that the kind of pulling away for it can't, no, we've got to do, we mustn't, oh no, what if? It's just that tugging. I don't personally find that helpful. And if I find if I do manage to open to grief, then generally what comes out of it is love. And then what comes out of love is whatever I can do. Whatever I can do, because I'm going to do what I can do. Yes, I'd love to do more, but I can do what I can do. I can do what I can do, that's it. I'd like people, my loved ones, not to die. And I know intellectually it's easy to understand they're going to die, but emotionally it's not easy. And I don't have kids, and I'm grateful for that, frankly, because I'm a worrier on that level. I'm very, I'm very soft-hearted, and I don't think I could manage it. But but then in a way, anxiety is letting it happen. But in a way, it's fretful. And really, I mean, this might sound difficult to say, but one has my sense. I'm telling you what I sense. It's up to you. My sense is one had to accept. One has to open to the possibility of pain and destruction. I really don't want it to happen. I hope it doesn't happen. If I can open to that, then in a way I've found a center where perhaps I can operate more freely and fully and graciously, and that's the best I can do. And it means I can also get, live now, rather than live in a, depressed, anxious state. I can live now, and if I can live joyfully, maybe that's part of an offering, with care and whatever I can do. I'm doing solar panels on, the whole, whatever I can do. And it doesn't have to have a result. It's just what I can do because I want to do what I can do. The results are beyond me, that then means I do find an axis within this domain, this critical domain.
Yeah, the sense of, we can do what we can do, yeah? And how do we get the kind of, what feels to me the kind of ground and strength, yeah? To actually, as you say, but actually be with everything in a way. And some of it is quite heartbreaking on many levels, yeah? But we're here. And when I first left New Zealand seeking a place of practice, I went with its 3 verses, and one of them was, become good before doing good, then goodness is a natural result. Yeah? And it was a kind of koan for me, along with the other 2 koans. But it was the sense, this came from a Sufi teaching of the heart cultivation, yeah? And I, at different points, I questioned that about the balance of it. But what I see more now is if I can actually come into right relationship with what is here, I have better possibility of being in right relationship with what is there. Yeah. And then the trembling, the anxiety, are allayed to some extent. It may be they'd never completely go in some way. We tremble, the heart trembles for the welfare of beings, yeah? But the gestures out come and they're fearless. Yeah? And as you're saying, Ajahn, we do what we can do, and it arises spontaneous naturally. So from being completely here, then the gesture is to serve. As I was saying yesterday, we serve the Dhamma, we serve our communities, we serve our family, we serve the cat. Yeah, the gesture is one, of coming more deeply into relationship with greater strength. And the Brahma Vihar really have to be there, all of them, and that deep sense of cause and effect, that I do what I do and I can have no expectation of the results, because if I do, then only agitation will follow. So it's not that I'm not reflective on the feedback that comes in, but I'm trying to do the best I can, yeah? And the thing I've found over the years really helpful, having tried to serve at different places, yeah, is to see I'm not alone in that. I'm part of a whole field, yeah. I'm in connection, and Eliza and I were talking the other day, that sense of, in a way, being in a relay, and people do what they can do, and then it becomes my time to offer what I can offer into the world, yeah, for while I have life and breath. And then that time will be over and someone else will pick that up. Yeah? But I'm in this stream of service. And there's something about feeling that stream that gives us strength. Yeah? Or you can even feel it as the generations before you, behind you. And then here we are. and generations of practitioners, yeah, or family, or all the different kinds of generations around you. And then you do what you can for your time. But you're not alone in that, and you're not having to do everything. Yeah. So to come into proportion with what is possible. But we see beings who have really freed up their heart. They make an enormous difference in the world, don't they? You know, they become real fields for blessings. So I trust this, because I have seen how, how it actually can really generate goodness and well-being for others. So that would be my response to an old friend here. We have these such tender hearts, don't we? And then we'll just keep kind of moving through these questions, and we'll just condense them a bit, but there's a question that we thought just to touch on briefly about someone with a history of chronic mental health issues, yeah? And about the place of antidepressants and medications within managing, what can be happening in terms of mental health. Is it good to actually take psychiatric medicines, and where do they fit with the 3 refuges? Yeah. Knowing that they can bring dullness and other consequences for the mind and body. Yeah, maybe I can just give a brief comment, and I done Sucitto, in the sense that we have a responsibility to look after this being, don't we? And we all have very different karma. So within what the understanding of this time is, that there are medications that can make a tremendous difference to our capacity to actually meet the world. Just as nourishing food can, just as all kinds of things that actually help maintain well-being. So, and I've spent a lot of time with people with really severe mental health affliction, and you can really see that medication, in a way, it's like you're drowning without it, or can be drowning, and it can just give enough stability in a way, kind of lift. So people have got their heads out of the water, and they can then start doing this other work to do what brings health and well-being. So I have no doubt about their place. And I also know how hard they can be in terms of the side effects. Yeah. So it isn't an easy choice, but in a way we have a duty to keep ourselves as well as we can with current understandings of what that might, how that might work. Yeah. And sometimes, we get on this little box of the medication, and then we can do the heart work that starts to mean things free up. But sometimes it's just, someone's just chemical. And it's just something we have to accept, just like some of us have to accept physical conditions, is what I would say. We just have to get our hearts around it. It can be really painful to do because there's such stigma. Okay.
I just would agree to everything you said, Willa. I don't have anything more to say. I'm not interested, but I have nothing more to add. I would affirm everything you say on that level.
All right. Well, we're moving through questions of slightly different qualities, So we've got a question here that is a kind of fun question. And it says, could you condense the teachings in such a way as to cut through all the confusion that may arise to flood the heart, and offer hands-on examples of how to practice that condensed approach in a way that will keep going and surely reach the goal. Yeah. So in 3 words, I don't.
Sila Samadhi Panya.
Oh, very good. You want to round that out a little?
Well, if you're only 3 words, that's the 3. Yeah, I don't want to be facetious, but actually, the condensed version isn't that condensed. You know, if you condense it anymore, you lose the tools. You know, you can say, okay, just let go of body and mind. That's a very simple statement, but you've got to have the details. I'm afraid it's not condensed. This is condensed. You know, I mean, the Buddha, I don't think he wasn't wasting his time. You know, he recognized when he gave a talk, this might be the only time people would see him. So he just, you know, he did it as direct as possible, and of course, what people would be able to get hold of. You know, I mean, if you've got a really condensed teaching, could you practice it? If I just said, okay, drop body and mind, that's pretty condensed. Can you do it? You know, say cultivate, you know, morality, samadhi, and wisdom. That's pretty condensed. Can you do it? Don't you need a little bit more detail and time? You know, this is you know, it's a cultivation. You can't grow apples any quicker than they'll grow. You know, you can give them all the love, but they can only grow as fast as they can grow. And the simple advice is you need the soil, sila. Yeah. You need the feeding, the samadhi, and then panya opens up. But that growing takes time. Got any quick? Would you like to crunch it up, Willa?
Well, you know, I was thinking when I thought this, I thought, what have I boiled my practice down to? Yeah. And I said, well, as we've been teaching, you know, uprighting the chitta in love, and then really uprighting it so that it's so grounded, so it just doesn't lean on anything. Yeah. And then you think, well, all right, but there's huge things around that. Yeah. You know, to have a chitta that does not lean on anything. I mean, yeah. So yeah, condense that to that, but then how do we get there? You know, what's needed for that to really ripen is a whole journey process. So it's, to me, it seems we have to pick up the round fullness, as you're saying, Bhante, Sila Samadhi Panya, and really let the whole thing ripen.
Yeah. I think Ajahn Mun, they asked him, Ajahn Mun, who was a great forest master, he was considered the kind of almost the great progenitor of all the meditation teachers in northeast Thailand, or sort of took him as an inspiration. And he was extremely, you know, diligent, very full on all the time. And, you know, and they said, how many precepts you keep? So I only keep 1 precept. So what's that? I watch the mind constantly. And it's like, what's your meditation? I watch the mind constantly. You know, with an eye of discernment. That's simple, yeah. I mean, that's crystalline, but you've got to have a pretty good eye to do that. And I'm worrying. And I wish you good luck with that.
Yeah, it is a case of letting things ripen, isn't it? And if you let things ripen, you'll get your own way of understanding, you know, in a way, your own language for what that looks like for you. You know, all these things are talking about the same thing, but we need in the end, our own kind of way of referencing and making sense of it. So, yeah. Another question, just a brief kind of question, possibly. What kind of relationship? I would like to know what kind of relationship I can find or cultivate towards the gods and celestial beings, as I mentioned in the verses of aspiration. So maybe I start off and then pass to you, Ajahn. And I find, you know, there's this chant, you know, we're really broadening out, yeah, and we've all grown up in different understandings of the cosmos. Yeah. Here it makes perfect sense. We're in Matariki, which is a celebration of certain of the, you could say, cosmic forces. And certainly in this country, there's a real understanding of beings that are not visible on a human realm. You know, I grew up with tanifas and so big water nagas and things. You know, we've had big road projects blocked for months while, you know, these beings were allowed to move into different locations. So, you know, you may be in a country where there's an understanding that it's not just what you can see with your eyes that exists. And what I would say in this chart is, if you're not aware those things actually are just part of your experience of the world, then it's a chance to open up into the fact that the world is bigger and more mysterious than the kind of, what you call it, the kind of basic elemental
Material world.
Yeah. So that's how I would hold it. For me, I get other beings as I chant this arising in my awareness, and within Buddhist cosmology, there are all kinds of orders of beings. Now, some of you will have relationship with those. For others of you, it may not be the case. Yeah? But you know, it is just a case of opening. Hey, come out of some kind of limited sense of what the world is. And it's very helpful for the heart to open more into the kind of mystery, the unknowing. Yeah? And to just scatter our goodness everywhere. It's kind of uncramps the heart, yeah, in my experience. You just get a sense, wow, the world is so vast and mysterious. So, Bhante, how do you work with this, you know, this particular celestial beings and gods? You know, what's your relationship with that?
I mean, there are all different levels of them, celestial beings, but I mean, the easiest ones are the nature ones, nature gods, nature deities. You know, I'm not saying, you know, little fellows with spiky hats, but when you just sort of see the miraculous forming and growth and energies and lifestyles of plants and animals, and the way the whole thing is knitted, you know, seamlessly fluid, and there's a kind of brightness when you come to a piece of nature that's not been messed up, you know, compared when you go to somewhere that's all kind of trampled and squashed and artificial trees stuck in the ground, and, you know, you can also always a little bit wild, which isn't very much left in Britain, but occasionally you've met a bit of stuff you can feel happiness of just feels happy. And you know, I live, it's like, it's right there with an arm, 2 arms reaches, there's grass, you know, out there, there's a tree. I got a little shrine under the tree. I put under that tree, and I look at that shrine. I've made that shrine, that tree. I think if there's any celestial beings around, they're going to be in that tree, because that's where I'd be. Absolutely. So I go to that tree. I don't, you know, I go in, I recognize it. I look at it, I honor it. You know, I think, tree, whatever you are amazing. You are fantastic. You are beautiful. You are great. I'm so pleased to be living with you. That's my puja to the tree. You know, my heart opens to that. And I look around and do the same thing. Because this is something, you know, I'm a bit not that refined really on these celestial levels. But that one I can kind of get some access to. And, you know, when you see a great river, you just feel, wow, this river's got some life in it, some energy in it, it's a whole, you know, they've made one of the rivers in New Zealand is now regarded as a living creature, you know, which I think is beautiful, because we get such a sort of stuck mentality around kind of material world, clock, and then immaterial, dead, you know, or even it's material like nature is just lumps of wood with no intelligence in it. And God, this utter stupidity. This stuff which is life, you know, it's got intelligence in it. It's intelligent. And, you know, I don't know what that intelligence is, but to me, that's pretty godly, that intelligence. That's godly. And I can manage that one. And I think also there's my sense of, I don't say prayer, but reaching out to, you know, whatever is there in terms of the cosmic order, the cosmic benevolence, you know, praying, you know, support, help, be here, you know, because I think the more we neglect it, and the more we cut off the source of something miraculous, which is what we really need, you know. Us human beings, we suffer tremendously from this arrogance, as if we're the only intelligent creatures around. It's really deadly. So I just want to come out of that and offer, recognize the intelligences that are way beyond me. That's my way of accessing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sense certainly within monastic monasteries, you know, before some chanting, there's this invitation for these different beings to come and listen to the teaching. And you know, I carry that with me as I'm doing things. So you know, it can be really beautiful to even just read the Dhamma out loud, some of these beautiful texts, and know that, hey, whatever beings who are there who would like to listen, if there are beings who would like to hear these beautiful teachings, you know, we can offer in that way too. Yeah, it seems to be the way coming into a bigger relationship with the world. So, yeah. So keeping moving here, you know, well, several times the phrase committing to waking up has been mentioned, certainly by me. I'm open and receptive to the possibility of awakening this lifetime. However, committing to it has a feeling of selfishness entangled with wanting and striving intentions. So, Ajahn, committing to waking up.
Well, you probably have to start from impure, you know, impure base, because it probably means you realize you're not awakened right now. So you can't come from a place of awakened purity. You've got to come from a place of I want to get something out of this, and start with that, you know. But then as you go along, you know, you can, you know, So as I said, sila samadhi panya, get your virtue together, start doing your practice, yeah. And then feel you get the dukkha of, recognizing your self vehicle isn't actually adequate for it. As hard as you push it, your self vehicle that you've relied upon to get you to awakening, because that's all you got, it's not adequate. And something you begins to have to open to something bigger. And that's really the mudra of awakening, is that, going down this path that's impossible for the self. You can get somewhere along it, and then you've got to, okay, once you get faith in the path, then gradually you have more faith in the path, and you have faith in the ego, and then gradually, okay, I'll let go of that because I trust virtue, even though it's uncomfortable. I'll trust, So it sort of takes you from the place we have to start, which is impurity. It takes you through, and gradually you begin to, your chitta comes out of the self vehicle and begins to see, oh, this piece I can let go of. This piece is not worthy of me. This piece, the chitta says, I can rise above this. Sometimes the chitta says, we're going this way, and the self says, no. And the chitta says, we're going this way. And the self says, no. And the chitta says, we're going this way. Okay, we're going this way. You're going to give up things. Oh, no. Yes, you are. Okay. And that's kind of, that's my sense of it. Yeah, my sense of it. I started from impure place, of course. Do this for a little while, get some meditation together, get my head together. Yeah, knock out this enlightenment project, maybe 3 months, then get back onto doing something else. I was that thick. Okay, so you get there, you try, and 3 months later, you're not quite there yet. A bit harder, not quite there yet. And then you've got to think, oh, the vehicle, you start to learn something about letting go of expectation, letting go of goals, letting go of self-criticism, getting more patient, equanimous, and that's the way. And you keep that commitment. Keep the commitment. That's the thing. And to know, is the commitment really, refine it to awakening or becoming? It's not so easy to see the difference. I want to become enlightened, or you can wake up.
Yeah, where you can get caught by the kind of paradox of the whole thing, can't you? That sense that there's a path which has a sense of time and somebody walking it, yeah. So that can have that energy of becoming, me wanting to get somewhere, yeah. But actually, in the lived reality, there's only here and now, yeah. And so it's imminent, yeah. And it's how do we, hold those two things together, that there's a path of cultivation and there's only this moment. Yeah? And I think if we keep the reference to here and now, some of that sense of striving and have to improve things kind of falls away immediately. Yeah? So I know I often say at the beginning of the time of practice, we come here, we sit down, really commit, or we ground ourselves in our commitment to actually waking up, to seeing clearly. Yeah? And what I'm meaning in that moment is it's so easy to sit down out of habit and then just go into some drowsy, dull state, yeah? Which drowsy dullness to me is they're very opposite energy of what we need to be cultivating, which is presence, mindfulness, alertness, yeah. So even in that simple thing, if I walk in this door, I sit down here, And I go, yeah, this is very precious time. Might be the last moments of my life, who knows? And I have full commitment to do what it takes to be here. And whatever comes around that, yeah. And in my practice, it's meant a real shift actually in how I work with breath, with everything, because it's that sense of being complete, completely upright and not letting experiencing breath, everything come. Yeah, so not, it starts to mitigate against that tendency to lean out, grasp, which we see in our relationship to breath, our relationship to practice, our relationship to everything. Yeah. So to really come into the receptivity of the mind. Yeah? My name, that one of my names has got Will in it. Yeah. And so we kind of usually have relationships to the unconscious, relationships to what we called. There's whole psychological studies on it. And so my willpower is really strong. And that, we can get tremendous states of samadhi, jhana, all kinds of stuff from willpower, but they go nowhere. Yeah, they're just more deeply entrapping. And you can get into incredible states and you realize you trapped yourself by your will. So it's to really practice about softening that cetana, that wanting, that striving. So we do that first, and easiest place to do that is in relationship to the breath. To come into receptivity, to come into availability, to let ourselves be touched, to be touched by something beautiful and loving. Because that striving has tremendous anxiety underneath it, yeah? It has the sense that there's something wrong with this being and they have to go somewhere. So we're coming out of that. That would be my response. That's what I mean by committing to waking up, really committing to being here. Yeah. To being here with love, knowing what's going on, yeah. Not some altered state, yeah. So know your tendencies, eh? Because they're the things, our ways of picking up the world. These are the things we have to work with and understand and meet and get medicines for, so that the practice really comes into balance. Shall we move on? There's a number of questions have come in really about relationship to practice, relationship to the world. So I'll read a few of them, and then there's one asking about how I did the transition out of the monastery, which is really in the same territory. So I've spent 3 months in a lot of practice in nature while having a break from work. I returned yesterday. I'm now neither of the world nor in it, and my psyche doesn't want to repeat mechanical processes at work. They feel too rigid, almost feels like reversing the space that opened up in nature. What is your suggestion on skillfully returning and integrating the practice in this context? And then there's another question or statement here. There have been studies into email apnea which show how we are holding our breath during this activity. I find I was doing that, given most of our lives are around email. Can you say something helpful about this disturbing findings, please? Yeah. Bye, John. You certainly have a lot of emails to answer. How do you transition between these different modes of experience?
Well, yeah, the last piece of nature that's left is the body. So, if you bear the body in mind and the breath in mind, not, and the breathing body in mind and the breathing energy in mind, remember the breathing in mind is not just lungs, it's the sense of bodily vitality, bodily presence, body feels here and happy and awake, then if that's starting to go, then it's time to, I find, well, I just take even a couple of minutes, stop, a little more attention to breathing, more attention to standing. Sometimes just get up, get out of my feet, do standing, down the spine, into the ground, almost as if you're asking the earth, your feet listen to the earth, and the energy begins to steady itself. So I suppose the simplest way to say it is to keep the energy in mind. We're often increasingly surrounded and immersed in automatic energy, in machine energy, in silicon energy, right? Machines, bleepers, buzzers, times, abstract stuff. This is just not that healthy. So you do. My sense is you've got to really spend some time out of it. I don't know what your life allows you, but you've got to get out of it, in my opinion. You've got to switch stuff off. If it makes it a little more inconvenient. Remember, the machine world always promises convenience and speed. These are drugs. Convenience is a drug, a sedative. Speed is a drug. And you promise it. You don't want it. So I'll soon have it a bit awkward, please. When I can actually feel my body doing it. So, this, I mean, wherever you're working, if you're working in offices, you're driving in cars, you're in traffic, you've got traffic lights, you've got flashing signs, symbols, and generally in that situation, people get pretty edgy. Some people really lose it in those situations, because the system is just stressed by it. And some people do better than others, but it's stress. And often people close because of the stress. To handle it, they just close off some of their radiant empathic energies get closed down to deal with that. We don't even know it's happening. Your body knows it's happening. I do. Yeah. And so you get out of that car. Okay, let's just take let's take 5 minutes even. So when I travel on airplanes, I used to travel on airplanes, long distance airplanes, I go and do a little bit of Qigong in the galley. It was just standing like a tree, Qigong, do some Qigong in the galley. I mean, the host, the stewardess or whatever they call them, like, but I look so weird anyway, they kind of think, just leave it alone. I get away with it because they think, well, I don't want to mess with this guy. He's totally weird. So I could stand somewhere like this because it gives me it gets me back deeply into the body, or the body energy channels open with that. And then 15 minutes of Qigong somewhere. You can take these little kind of tips. 15 minutes, 10 minutes of standing, just standing like a tree, rooted to the ground, anything to get that back. And then you've got to also look at the kind of automatic nature of it, of the machine world. It's 7 o'clock, it's 8 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock. You've got 10 minutes of this, you've got half an hour of that. Just what can you break? Can you break out of that dead march? You know, that automatic march. Just a a few seconds here, a minute there, chip away at it. You know, to get something more like organic rhythm going in what you're doing. You know, try to not get to when things on time. Either get early or get late, but don't arrive on time. It's an insult. Because, it means, well, how can you do that? I mean, sometimes it happens. Generally, I'm early, personally, because I feel I don't want to have other people waiting. But I never arrive on time. I'm generally early. I'm rarely late, but because I can't operate authentically around these kind of numbers, So I accept the fact I'm going to be standing around waiting for a bit. Fine. Stand and wait, just do some practice. Do some practice. Waiting for 10 minutes, do some practice. Just standing, breathing. Because look at a body here. So it's my sense is just to break some of these rhythms up. If you're working, I hope you're not doing 7-day a week. You get, look at the thing very realistic. If you're doing 5 days a week or something, you've also got to do house duties and so forth. See if you can carve out at least half a day when you just, just loosen up, go out into nature anywhere you can, get into your body, do some exercise, these sort of things to regenerate your energies. And because it's I mean, it's such a kind of archaic saying, isn't it? We belong to the planet, It's the kind of there's this kind of native peoples used to say that. Oh, interesting, old primitive belief. You're damn right. And you can feel it when you get your feet into the ground and you're breathing true air. You think, yeah, they were dead right. Energetically, we do. Psychologically, we've gone out of it, but energetically, this body does, and you want to return to that. So those be my comments.
Yeah, it's a real edge, isn't it, for us all? When I saw these questions, particularly since there's a reference back to the transition, really from monastic, or you could say more inward, protected states out into unprotected places and states, and what that's like. And we're all making that journey, really, or many of us are making that journey. And one thing was really clear in that movement for me is one of the things the Buddha said about where he kept his mind. Yeah, so when no one was around, he could, in a way, abide in the nibbana element. But then he met the world with metta karuna. So I thought, well, that's the in a way, that's the guidance on how do you come in relationship as you come out from these inward states. You come into right relationship that has love in it. So I found that really helpful as a way of meeting it. And then from the Zen teaching of the ox herding pictures, you'll all know them, but the last movement is to go back into the marketplace with helping hands. And this is what our work is, isn't it? Wherever it is, whatever we're doing, we're doing that. And then there's how do we get the energetic, this delicate, sensitive being in a way where that is possible. And in that transition from the protectiveness of the monastery into the experience out of it was really incredibly shocking for my energy body. I was very quickly, in a way, found myself in a city and with a job which was needed, but it had an hour and a half's commute. And what I would notice is when I woke up in my morning, the whole body would be like this and kind of nauseous, yeah. And what I noticed was it was the body's having a kind of the impact of being in this traffic, yeah. Some of it at 110 kilometers an hour, sometimes at 0, accidents everywhere, yeah. And it was really helpful to see how impactful most of our lives are, yeah. The kind of energy that these systems are having to hold and meet. And of course, they got more resilient with it. And so that was easy. But it's to just respect how much we're actually encountering, is my sense of it. You know? And then we go into the workplace, yeah. And the sense, as Ajahn Sucitto is saying, these bodies are nature bodies, and the bodies we meet at work are nature bodies. So we stay connected in that way, bringing forth love. And I found that, I still find it really helpful. You know, and then keeping mindfulness, keeping awareness on the back of the body, on seating, you know, keeping the heart centered in friendliness and kindness. These all help. And for me, their walking meditation becomes really vital, yeah? When we stand up, when we walk, you know, they may own us when we're sitting down at the computer, yeah? And certainly in my work, there was more work than you could do if you worked 24 hours a day, yeah? But when I'm walking, I'm free, yeah? You know, as I'm walking to another meeting, to meet with somebody, you can just abandon the mental proliferation and come into the body and the ground. And that's, I found, was incredibly helpful, to come out of the pressure and just come back home. When Ajahn Sucitto, myself, we've done work at Karuna Institute, and one of the things they're really strong on is the sense of you keep attention 1/3 here, 1/3 on the other, and 1/3 on the field. Yeah? And I find that really helpful too. Yeah? That there's work to do, there's emails to do, but there's always a reference here. Yeah? Feeling the body, feeling the back of the body. That we, as much as we can, we never abandon the chitta.
Never abandon the chitta.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it takes, you know, it takes the kind of work of meditation, I would say, and of being in nature, so that we have the capacity, yeah? Because if your work is anything, particularly like my work in Melbourne was, you know, it had so endless amount of work and such an urgency, you know, working with folk who are dying in their families. Yeah? Impossible to meet. Yeah? So to stay connected to love, to stay connected to the chitta, yeah, would be my encouragement to us all. Yeah? Work is so endless. At the end of the day, you do what Lumpur Liam always said, is at the end of the day, it's finished. And we pick it up again, new each day. Yeah?
It's like you've got to challenge the language that gets into your system, the language of the world, like urgent and a little bit, you know, get it done by. He's got deadline, this kind of language like that. You know, don't miss out. Deadline, convenient, easy, new, progressive. You know, this stuff gets into your system, and it's insidious. This stuff. You know, what does it mean? It generally means, you know, let go of your chitta and go into craving of some kind. You know, and lose your natural rhythm and go into overstimulation of some kind. Lose your natural energy, go into kind of driven of some time. It's kind of, you know, it's cosmetic language, but when you get down to what it's actually doing to your nervous system, and people just revved up because of deadline and get it done and get a good standard and keep, you know, upwardly moving, this kind of stuff going on, you know, and better. And my sense is good enough is the line, no deadline. It finishes when it finishes. Good enough is what we're looking for. If it's better than good enough, something's going to be strange. Somebody's had to squeeze themselves to make it better than that. I don't want that. You know, so you've got to really, in my opinion, just listen to some of the words that run through your heart that you feel doing things to you. And it's the language of the atmosphere that we're in. You're getting it saturated all the time in this language with its messages and its signals. And you've really got to look at that stuff pretty clearly and just, what's it do? What does it do? This is my life, the only one you know. What are you giving it away to? And I'm taking it back. Okay, it won't be so convenient, it won't be so easy, it won't be so comfortable, but I'm taking it back. Oh, this is the general, I mean, you know, work and do as best you can, but these are things I would reflect upon.
And this whole movement, you know, out from the inward into relationship is something really that, you know, we've been talking about, and we'll certainly both, I know I and Sucitto have started to today, has been all along. I will just start to reflect on more because it's so important, yeah. Relating here, relating there. So, yeah. Yeah, it's hard when you're working for the mouse, isn't it? So maybe, you know, come to the end of the time, so we'll leave it here. There are questions still unanswered, of course. Well, there's no answers, but unresponded to, and we'll pick up what we can tomorrow. Thank you.
Good night. Good morning, good, just good. Whatever it is may be good.
Thank you.
See you in a while. Take care.